Hi, this is Bob, and today I have an interview with Distorted Force. Distorted Force is from Greece, and they have released Angelic Bloodshed, a powerful album that will leave you wanting more. And here is my interview with Distorted Force. Hello, my friend.
Hi,
I wanted to thank you for taking time to speak with me today.
it's my pleasure, sir. Thank you.
How was the recording process for Angelic Bloodshed? How did it go for you guys?
The process was pretty challenging because it was in the COVID period, so we had to do a lot of things differently. The guitars and the bass was recorded at my place, but for some things we didn't have the choice. We had to use a studio for the vocals. Every one of us had to do his part, and then we gathered all the tracks and we did them the mix with the editing, the mastering. It was pretty challenging. It was different from anything we ever done in the past. But on the bright side, we had all the time in the world to adjust everything as we please, to edit the hell out of it, to make it sound as perfect as it can be. So we're pretty much satisfied with the result, but it was very, very challenging.
I wanted to ask you if you could speak on the track Light and Stone. It's one of
Yes.
my favorite tracks on the album.
About Light and Stone, the title was inspired from one of the riffs. One of the riffs brought me in mind an ancient battle, like horses galloping. And originally, I imagined battles of ancient times, like ancient Greece, like the 300. But one idea was to give it a name similar to that idea, but I didn't want to name the song Hellas. Hellas is the Greek name for Greece, and I didn't want to do that because we have a lot of extreme right-wing parties in Greece, and I didn't want to make them happy. So in ancient Greek, Hellas, it means, this is what it means. It's a combined word. The first part of the word means light, and the second means stone. So Greece in ancient Greek means light and stone. But this is about the music. We came up with a whole different theme about the lyrics. So we wrote the lyrics about Viking battles because that's how it came out. But we wrote the lyrics in a way that it can be about a Viking battle and about a battle in ancient Greece. If you read the lyrics and think about a Viking battle, it makes perfect sense. If you read the lyrics and think about a battle in ancient Greece, it also makes perfect sense because the ancient Greek pantheon also had an old father. There were a lot of civil wars, and our hometown is Thessaloniki, and it's in northern Greece. So it has this lyric saying, "We are men of the north," and this is, of course, a reference to Alexander the Great. But it can work both ways.
I also wanted to ask you about Clouds. That segment on the album is so powerful. I wanted to know, was that in many ways personal in nature, something you wanted to get out?
Yes, Clouds, in my point of view, is the heaviest track of the album, like emotionally. Through the years, there were some lines from scripts, from series, from movies that really got into me, that really hit me in a place that nothing else ever hit me so deep. So I gathered all these lines and I wanted to make something that could really capture the essence of loneliness and rejection and depression. So I have this friend, Natasha, and she's an excellent pianist. And I called her one day and I asked her, "Do you want to record some piano?" She said, "Sure." She came to my place. She recorded the whole thing in one take, and I just added the audio of the movies or the series on Natasha's improvisation. And the title Clouds is because all this mood, all this It's like imagine you swim in mud and fighting with depression and trying to get out of the mud. All this mood in my mind's eye was captured with a gray sky. And the day that Natasha came to my place to record the piano part, it was a rainy day, so it was poetic. It was really nice. So this gray, absolutely gray sky inspired me with the title Clouds. And this title and this mood, I think, perfectly describes the mood of the track.
Absolutely. And I also wanted to ask you, what was the hardest track for you to lay down?
Acherondas, for sure. No question, no contest. This goddamn track. This really is not the longest track on the album, but it's the weirdest of all. It has so many changes, so many mood swings, 2 solos. We have other riffs in the album that are faster, like Hellbroth has one hell of a riff that goes crazy fast. We have more technical stuff, but the composition of Acherondas, which is the Greek word for the river Styx, and this is what the song is about. It's about the transition. It had the weirdest solos, the weirdest riffs, the weirdest transitions. It was crazy. It really gave me, and me personally, and all of us, all of the group, a very, very hard time recording it.
And were there any tracks that didn't make the album?
No, sir. I have like a bank of tracks. We have like 2 more albums that are not recorded yet. So on this album, we chose the heaviest tracks, in our opinion, the best tracks from our band. We wanted to make a hell of an album because we really struggling in mediocrity for all these years. Because we were students, we didn't have enough money for a decent production, but now we are in a position that we can make a decent production. And we felt that this was the time to pick up the best we have, to gather them all in one album, and like make this the magnum opus of the band.
It definitely is. It is a great album from top to bottom. I wanted to ask you if you could speak on the album artwork and the artist that was involved.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's a great artist, Nikos. He makes a lot of great artworks. He created artworks for a lot of progressive metal bands. So it was a perfect match. When we approached him and we asked him to create us an artwork, he gave us some options, and we already had a title in our heads. We wanted to name the album Angelic Budget, and we were looking at his portfolio, and we stepped upon this artwork with the angel and the spear and the wings, and I remember it was yesterday. It was me and the singer in a meeting. We saw this artwork and we said, okay, it's got to be this one. And it's a pretty amazing story how this artwork was fixed. This creator is also a photographer. He's not only a designer, he's also a photographer. And this picture is a collage of different photos. For example, the body of the statue is from Rome, is from a museum in Rome. The wings from a bird at a zoo at Berlin, at Germany. The horns are from, again, another animal that he took a picture of. He takes pictures of stuff he finds exciting, and then he puts them all together to create this magnificent thing.
And I wanted to ask you as well, what can fans look for next? What's the next step for Distorted Force?
We have right now a really difficult time to perform live. Our place of action was Thessaloniki, in northern Greece. But at the recent years, I had to move to Cyprus. Our drummer, now he is a professional football player. He plays in the 2nd division. Our singer is a chef at the best restaurant. He works at Mykonos, at Santorini. He works at the highest places. So the way life brought things, it's really difficult for us to gather all together again and perform live. But we are in constant communication with each other. We decided that because we cannot do what we used to do all these years, to perform live every month, because, life happens. Our plan is to stick to the studio. Nowadays, we just take a break to to enjoy the fruition of all of our efforts. And I don't know, maybe in autumn, maybe in winter, we will start practicing the tracks of the next album. Then every one of us will record his instrument in his house. And then again, when everything is recorded, we will gather everything, we will mix, edit, and master everything. This can take, I don't know, maybe 3 years, maybe something like that. This album, Angelic Bloodshed, took 5 years to become actual. Approximately for every 10 to 15 seconds of audio you listen on this album, it's 2 working days for us.
I wanted to ask you as well, if you could give me a band history lesson and take me back through time. How did the band form?
The band formed back in 2008. We were students, we came together, we were playing heavy metal, we were covering Iced Earth, Iron Maiden, Metallica, we were covering all the bands we were listening to actually. And we started performing live in our hometown. It was going really well, so we recorded a demo. Our first short length was in 2010 with 3 original tracks and 3 covers. We covered on the first short length, what did we cover? We covered Paranoid, we covered Mother from Danzig, and we also did Holy Diver.
Wow.
So it was 3 original songs, 3 covers. That was our first work. Pure heavy metal, like traditional, what we call traditional heavy metal. The next album was 1 year later, in 2011. It's titled A Dead Man's Dream, and it's completely different style. It's still heavy metal, but it has a lot of atmospheric parts. It was heavily influenced by bands like Anathema, Porcupine Tree. It was more like British, like more British influenced. But then we had a change in personnel. We changed some members, and in 2012 we recorded Depersonalization. This was one of the heaviest so far. It was all in male brutal vocals. It was short length, only 5 tracks, and that's why the title. That's why Depersonalization. Like we completely changed the personality of the band in that album. And then 1 year later, again in 2013, we introduced some progressive metal elements. The next album, Fields in Desolation. This was also a change in the band's course. It had a lot of more complex riffs, huge songs like 8 minutes, 10 minutes or more. It was clearly influenced by bands like Sabotage, like Fate's Warning. We again changed the course of the band in that album, and 1 year later, in 2014, we recorded Taken by Force. This album had all the elements of the previous one, plus some a little more death metal elements, like we got really influenced by Death, the band's Death, and not only Death, all of Chuck Schuldinger's work.
When I think of Death, I always think of the song Pull the Plug. It's one of my favorite metal tracks of all time.
One of my favorites as well. And then it took us 4 years to record the next one. We used to be very active, to release a new album every year, to perform all over Greece, and later on we also performed in Europe. We performed in Bucharest, Romania, we performed in Berlin, we performed in Cyprus. After 2014, it took us 4 whole years to record the next one. Curves of Sidereal Cosmos. This was clearly progressive death. The different thing in this album was that it was a concept album. The lyrics of the album from the start to the end, they are narrating a story. It's like a D&D quest. We have our main characters. They're trying to get from point A to point B. The whole point is they find themselves in a realm and they're trying to get out of the realm. This is the whole point of the album. And of course, it has its symbolisms, like if you find yourself in a place of depression, this is what you have to go through. And it was, of course, also influenced by writers like Lovecraft. It was influenced by Edgar Allan Poe. And actually, this album, Curves of Sidereal Cosmos, the last track of the album, it's the whole poem of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven, set to music. And it's full. It's the longest track we ever recorded, the longest track we ever performed live, 20-something minutes track. And now we come to today. This is Angelic Blessed. It's our 7th album in total. It's not a concept like the previous one. It has a lot of different stories to tell. For example, we have prepared some video clips for each song that we're going to publish every 2 months. And every song of this album has a different mood. In my opinion, from all the albums we recorded so far, this is my favorite, and this is one of the reasons, for its variety.
I also want to ask you if you could speak on your musical development, and at what age did you begin?
I began as a pianist at the age of, before I even started going to school. My parents sent me to music school at the age of 4 for some reason.
Wow.
And I started as a pianist, as a classical pianist. I never got my degree though, because the piano degree needs 10 years, and I stopped my studies at the 7th year. So I never got my degree. And because I was from a point and after I was not really interested in, I didn't want to invest anymore in this instrument. And I was very moved by the sound of guitar. I remember people playing guitar or listening to guitar at songs, and I was really interested in that sound. So I remember I was I don't know, like 10 years old, maybe 11, maybe 12. I was begging my father for a guitar, and he bought me one for my birthday, and this is when it all started. At first I was playing easy rock songs like AC/DC, easy to learn. Then I got a little deeper, started learning Scorpions, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Pink Floyd. And then I got a little deeper and I started learning Iced Earth, Iron Maiden, Metallica, Black Sabbath. And then when we formed the band, you know how friends are, one influences the other.
Sure.
We share music. We, as a group, we were really into the heavy sound, like thrash metal, death metal. From that point, I started learning death songs, some heavier stuff, Amon Amarth. But then, in like my 20s, in my early 20s, I think the main reason that got me in that technical level was Dream Theater. I was obsessed with Dream Theater. I had a schedule, and my goal was to learn every Dream Theater song ever. And
Wow.
I started learning them one by one. I think it was mainly because of Dream Theater and Nevermore. This is what kept me getting better, to always try difficult things, always get out of your safe space, always get out of your comfort zone and do the difficult thing. I could easily keep learning Iced Earth songs or Black Sabbath songs. I would be constantly in a safe space, doing techniques that I already know, but my obsession with Dream Theater really made me a decent guitar player. I tried so hard. I had to, because the technical level of Dream Theater is crazy. So I had to do my best every day. When I was a student, I was practicing Dream Theater every day. It doesn't matter that I failed, because it was expected. What I was thinking, my goal was to learn the whole discography of Dream Theater. What the hell I was thinking? But it doesn't matter, because just because I tried, that alone made me a better guitarist.
Sure. And I remember Rush had a reissue of Farewell to Kings, and Dream Theater did cover Xanadu. And I thought, to touch that song, one of the
I know.
songs. I was like, oh, it's gonna be nightmarish to listen to. And I heard it, and I was just floored. I was like, nobody could do that song, and they did it to a T. Along that musical journey of yours, I wanted to ask you, what's the best advice that has been given to you along the way?
The best advice I was given was probably the difference between the amateur and the expert is that the expert has failed more times than the amateur has even tried. I think that is one really good advice, to not be afraid of failure. Another good piece of advice was I was watching an interview from Giannis Antetokounmpo. And this mindset works not only in music, but in all aspects of doing things of life. He said that it doesn't matter if you're good at one game. You were decent in one game. That's not the point. You have to be consistent. It's all about consistency. And this, I think, is one of the best mindsets to have. If you want to go to the gym and you don't want to go to the gym, and you push yourself, and okay, you go one day, you go 2 days, you go 3 days, but you practice guitar 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and then you don't. You're not going to improve yourself by that. You have to be consistent. You have to do it every day.
Sure. And when you're not working on music, I wanted to ask you if you have any hobbies that you enjoy in your spare time.
Of course, I play video games, I read books, I like swimming. I used to be a semi-pro athlete in my prime, in my early 20s, but not anymore. And another hobby I got into for like 2 or 3 years now, I have taken interest in astrophysics. I read books about astrophysics, I watch shows, I watch Carl Sagan, Neil deGrasse Tyson, all of these guys. For some reason, I find space more and more interesting.
I also wanted to ask you...
Actually, sorry to interrupt, the last song of the album, Approaching Event Horizon, it's about that. It's about that. It's about approaching a black hole. It's a sci-fi concept song. It's about a crew in a spaceship that goes on a mission, and the mission is to get to the wormhole inside of a black hole. You know, you understand that space also inspires me.
And what's the best way to get merchandise and a physical copy of the album?
2 ways. You can contact the band in our social media, and I can just send you a copy, or you can contact our label. It's French, Shaman Records, very good guys, very good people. Now we are in the process of designing t-shirts and hoodies as well, so I believe in a couple of months we will have them as well.
And lastly, I wanted to ask you, if you could give a message to your fans, what would that message be?
First of all, I want to thank our fans for their support. We really appreciate them. It's the best feeling in the world when we go on stage and see all these people. And I appreciate everyone who gives our music a chance. This is the most I can ask for. I don't take anyone for granted. And a huge, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone who gave our music a chance, either if they liked it or not.
Well, I think you've created an amazing album, and you definitely have gained a fan in me as well. As soon as I heard this album, I wanted to look back into your catalog and delve deeper into this band, because this album, as I said before, is absolutely amazing top to bottom. I think it has great flow. I think it shows the band as a unit. And like I say, with tracks like Light and Steel and Clouds, it's so immersive that you just want more.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very, very much, sir. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you again for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, my friend.
You too, sir. I wish the best to you and your show.
Well, thank you very much, and you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Cheers.
I'd like to thank you for listening to today's podcast. You can sponsor the podcast Just click that button and you can be a member of the family.